All right. Hello, 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 and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about feeling inadequate. We're going to be talking about how to move past our feeling that we're not enough, that we're not doing enough, that we haven't produced enough, that we're not valuable, that we're not good enough. And then the flip side of that, or the other side of that, the other part of that, the feeling like we don't have enough, like we're not being provided for, we don't feel secure, we don't feel stable, we constantly feel like we're not getting enough love, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough material needs, and just this constant treadmill that we're kind of all on, trying to become good enough, trying to become worthy, feeling like we're not, feeling like we're inadequate, feeling like we're never enough. We're never enough for our partners, we're never enough for our friends and family, we're never enough for society, we're never enough in our work, we're never enough in whatever it is, our bodies, right? We all have the thing that is what we blame it on, that feeling of not enough. That if I just improve my body, if I could just get the job, if I could just get the relationship, if I could just get the right amount of money, I'd feel good. And then at the same time, that feeling of like not having enough money, not having enough love, not having enough support, and feeling like we're not provided for. And these feelings are what sort of drive pretty much a lot of us and like what we do. We're constantly, so I'm definitely feeling inadequate at the moment because I'm not being as productive as I used to be and surrendering my ED, which makes me not feel enough in so many levels. Yes. So I hope that I'm going to be able to kind of speak to all of that in this live. So just hold on. All right. So what we have to recognize is that there is a core root misunderstanding that leads to us feeling like we are inadequate. And there is also a core root, completely reasonable, actually happened to us trauma that leads us to feeling like we aren't enough, and also that there isn't enough. Okay? So first things first, I have done my why the abundance teachings are bullshit, why hustle mentality is killing us, and the written work for that. So this is sort of a continuation of that conversation of the why we need to find our enoughness and why this is sort of the key. And then I'm going to take that all deeper right now. But if you want to go back and watch those other videos, this is kind of like the deepening of those concepts. All right. So I've put the links in. So if you watch this on IGTV, you'll see the links in there. If you watch this on Facebook, you'll see the links. If you watch this on YouTube, you'll see the links in the description. But doesn't matter if you're here right now, just listen to this. All right, so we need to zoom out, and we have to start from the beginning, okay? So the very big concept, the root of all of the mess of inadequacy and not enough and all these things, comes from this. We are human beings who have biology. We want to live. The thing we want the most is to express our genetic potential. That is our desire. Just like all other forms of life, just like everything else that is alive, our one core desire, the thing that drives all of us, is we have this genetic potential that we want to evolve into. We want to grow into what we are capable of growing into. Just like a tree wants to grow, right? The little acorn seed wants to grow into the acorn. And it's going to spend its entire life gathering nutrients, processing, growing, adapting in whatever ways it needs to in order that it can best express its potential. Okay? So everything that it's doing, everything that little acorn is doing, is an attempt at getting its needs met. So now, right? In order to express our potential, in order to be you, In order for the acorn seed to become the acorn tree, its needs have to get met. Okay? Evolution does not just happen on its own. Growth does not just naturally happen. There are requirements. There are base requirements. Okay, so we understand a little baby, if you don't give it milk, it's not going to grow. A little baby is not going to just grow into an adult if you don't give it food, if you don't give it shelter, if you don't give it touch and love. Yes? There are some needs, okay? So next concept. So we all want to grow into our genetic potential. That is what you actually want. Everything you're doing, everything you've ever done, everything you will ever do is rooted in that. Even the most seemingly self-destructive things that you do. And this is why I hope at some point psychology catches up to what's actually going on with us. Even the most seemingly self-destructive things you do, you are doing because on some level, you learned in your nervous system that action, that way of being, that way of living was what was required for you to get your needs met so that you could live. Okay? We are very complex beings who can tell very complex stories and get very, very confused, and that is a lot of where we are. But the ultimate reality is everything you are doing because you are trying to get your needs met so that you can express your genetic potential. Now, there are some needs that when we don't get met, we die. Those are the obvious ones, right? If you just stop eating, you stop eating for long enough, you're just going to die. We understand that as a need. We understand food and nutrition as a need. We understand if you don't drink water, you're going to die. There's the kind of the cause and effect relationship of not being able to continue on expressing your genetic potential because this base need is so fundamental that when you don't have it, we can't adapt in any way to make it so that we can keep going even though we don't have that thing. We have those needs. We also have needs, okay? Now this is where things get real confusing. We also have needs that can go unmet for a very, very, very long time. That can be met in only partial ways for a very, very, very long time. Okay? And we will continue to live. We will adapt. We will adjust. We will do things like a tree that changes its or a flower, right? A flower that changes the way that it grows in order to grow around roots and to grow around things so that it can reach the sun, right? We are the same way. We have some needs that we are not even aware of, that we don't even know that we have, and that aren't being met, and that we are attempting to meet in less than ideal ways, or that aren't getting met and that we're adapting in some way. We're coping with the need not being met and continuing to live, continuing to seemingly grow, continuing to carry on. But we're in pain and we're struggling and it's hard and it doesn't feel good and we seem to be getting worse instead of better at times and all these things. That's where that comes from. Okay. So we are humanity that's still very, very, very unself-aware. We are a humanity that's still very, very, very unself-aware. We are not very aware of what our actual needs are. And we're not living from the pragmatic understanding that what we want is to express our genetic potential. Okay? We are living in systems that first have been built on the trauma of not enough. So the very real survivalist trauma that humanity has faced for all of humanity, of not having resources, of having resources and then those resources getting taken away, okay? Of nature not providing for us, of other nations coming and attacking your group, of drought, of flood, of abundance for a little while and then not understanding weather patterns, not understanding how to live in certain environments. We have experienced forever this slow progression of understanding ourselves more and more and more through the trauma and consequence of figuring out what happens when we don't get our needs met. Okay? So we have been learning as a humanity about what we need, mostly through pain. Because remember, in real reality, pain is a sign that we are going against reality. We are breaking ourselves against the laws of reality. We are trying to live in a way where our needs are not being met, we are being antagonized, or something is being withheld from us so that we can't grow. Because remember, what's the whole thing? The whole thing, you're a biological organism that wants to express your genetic potential. You're very complicated. You're very beautiful. You're very unique. Yes. And you're just like everyone else and every other living thing. You have a biology that you want to express. You have needs in order for that biology to be expressed, in order for that growth to happen. Those needs change and shift and evolve as you change and shift and evolve. So each time you grow, each time you evolve, you actually develop new needs. You develop new desires. You develop new complex systems that then have new complex methods of keeping those systems going and evolving them. So again, meeting the needs of a baby is much simpler than meeting the needs of a 17-year-old. A 17-year-old is far more complex and therefore has far more complex needs. You try to give what worked to your little baby to your 17-year-old, and your 17-year-old is going to be adapting and adjusting and not thriving because their needs aren't being met. Okay, so we have had all of these traumas of not having our needs met, and like I said, that pain comes from I am not getting my needs met, and therefore I cannot grow. Pleasure, true pleasure, at its root, is I am being supported on my growth path. That doesn't even necessarily mean you're like at the pinnacle of some sort of like epic growth thing. Okay, pleasure can literally come from I'm in a state where I just have my needs met right now, and I'm chilling. I'm just hanging out. I've done a growth cycle. I've experienced that. I'm integrating it. I'm just living. Okay? We can kind of get confused sometimes into thinking that if growth is the only pleasure, then I got to be on some sort of like hyper growth path all the time. And it's like it's not even that. It's just if you're being supported, there are going to be times where you're not really doing much. And that's like perfectly in alignment. You're just, like I said, you're just hanging out. You're just resting. Your needs are being met. You're hanging out. You're resting. You're producing a little bit. You're doing a little bit. We all have cycles and seasons and what is required for our growth overall, overarchingly. Yes? Which changes from season to season. Like I say, sometimes we are in a season of just rest, and that is overarchingly what's best for our growth. Sometimes we're in a season of destruction, and that's overarchingly what's best for our growth. Sometimes we're in a season of productivity and production, and that's overarchingly what's best for our growth. And so we don't want to get too black and white with this concept, that the only thing that feels good is growth, and therefore I have to be in something that's obviously growth. Like I said, there are even times where destroying what you have seemingly destruction is the greatest growth path that you could possibly be on. So there will be pleasure in it, even though it's chaotic and destructive. Okay, so we don't want to get too black and white with this. But the bottom line is, again, when you're doing what is best for your growth, you're going to feel pleasure. You're going to feel a sense of satisfaction. You're going to feel a sense of rightness. Even if it's chaotic and destructive and crazy, it's still going to feel like that. If your growth is being antagonized, no matter how good it looks on the surface, no matter how much you're in alignment with consensus reality, no matter how much you're being accepted and loved and approved of, there's going to be pain and there's going to be consequence. There's going to be long-term consequence of pain that show us we're out of alignment with reality. These are the roots of pain and pleasure. Now, we got this all messed up as a humanity. And this is part of where this inadequacy and I am not good enough and I am not worthy is coming from. So again, we have experienced the trauma of actually not enough, which scares us and scared us forever and ever and ever. And we've been learning through the pain of what it's like to not have our needs met. Because essentially we are an incredibly complex group of individuals, the humans, and we have had such little self-awareness, right? We have very, very complex needs and very, very, very low self-awareness. And we've been slowly developing more and more and more self-awareness. Like, think about what we know now about the human body versus what we knew about it 100 years ago. We are surviving longer. We are having more productivity. We are having more pleasure in our lives simply because of 100 years of humans just experiencing what it's like to not have what we need, to learn from that pain, to adjust the way that we live, to meet the need, and then that just becomes a normal way of life. And then now the society just has that need met built in. And then that generation lives a little bit longer, has a little bit more pleasure, and then discovers something new that the next generation is going to benefit from. So like my generation of people like me with autism and the MTHFR gene mutation and all of these things, I am benefiting from the millions of years of human evolution where we've been slowly figuring out people like this, when they don't have these things, really suffer. When we give them these things, methylated B vitamins, they do much better. So now I can just take a methylated B vitamin, whereas if I had been born a generation ago, I probably would have spent my whole life in a lot of debilitating pain and had no idea why and not been able to fix it. You see? And it wouldn't have been my fault. It wasn't because I'm not worthy. It's not because I'm not good enough. The reality just is, these are the needs that I have. If those needs go unmet, I have pain. I cannot express and grow and evolve as well as I would have had I gotten that need met. So the very real human trauma of us not understanding ourselves and having to learn every generation a little bit more about what we need through the experience of not having what we need and learning from that pain. That is how we've been evolving as a humanity. Okay, so we have that. And then as individuals, okay, so where our first I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I am inadequate came from was in our childhoods. Oh no, Hallie's broken record. She says the same thing over and over again because it is the root of everything. In our childhoods, yes, where we were fully and completely dependent upon our caregivers for absolutely everything, we had no awareness of our own needs. We had no awareness of how to meet our own needs. We had no awareness of why we were in pain or why we were in pleasure. We had instinct, yes, children had their instincts, and we expressed our instinct. When we were hungry, we cried. Because we had pain, we didn't know we were hungry. We didn't know, hey, I'm low on energy right now, and that's what's happening. Maybe if I jostle mom, she will give me the boob. And the boob gives me food, and the food is the thing that makes my stomach ache go away. We didn't know that. We just had pain, and we made a sound, and then something happened, and then the pain went away. That was reality to us. From 0 to 7. At least. Okay. When and if we were in pain, when and if we were in a learning cycle, so same thing with we had water in cups and we spilt it and we're trying to do something, or we climbed up somewhere and we didn't know how to get down. So we have a pain, that's a need, that's not being met, we cry out for it, and we're abandoned. Or, like I say, we're doing something where we're just trying to learn, we're just trying to evolve, we're just trying to learn about our environment through interacting with it and not knowing and then needing to be coached and taught how things work. When that doesn't happen, when in those positions of pain or positions of learning, we were abandoned, we were rejected, we were scolded, we were shamed, we were left, abandoned. All we had control over was our own selves. We couldn't say, oh, mom just doesn't understand what I need. Or mom's just stressed right now and can't give it to me. Or caregivers don't have what I need. Caregivers don't know what I need. We didn't understand anything other than my behavior seems to be the one thing that drives getting my needs met or being abandoned by these people that I'm fully and completely dependent on for everything. So in our childhoods, any part of us that had a need, okay, so now this is where it gets complicated for us, right? If you had a need for sexual pleasure and your caregivers were not comfortable with that, or shamed that, or rejected that, that part of you that needed that doesn't go away. That part of you that needed that doesn't stop needing that. That part of you that needed that is an essential part of your genetic expression. That's a need. When that need goes unmet, you don't blossom properly. You have pain. So if you were shamed for your sexual desire, if you were just abandoned and rejected in it, if you were told, no, don't do that till marriage, whatever it was, that part of you that has that need becomes an existential threat to you. So it's not just that you now don't meet the need. So you have a need that's not being met. That's bad enough. No. What actually happens is, now this part of you that has a need, that again, has to be met in order for you to express your genetic potential. Which means, so long as that need goes unmet, you are going to be in pain. You are not going to be able to feel like you're living your full life. That's the base trauma that's happening. Now, on top of that, you have learned that this is a bad part of you. This is a part of you that makes it so that you are unsafe. This is a part of you that is threatening the rest of your needs getting met. Because if this sexual part of you gets you rejected by your caregivers, you don't know that your caregivers are still going to feed you and clothe you and be there for you. Now you just feel like this sexual part of me is bad and wrong because it's making caregivers pull away from me. And caregivers are who I depend on for absolutely everything. So it's not just that a part of you that has actual needs and must grow in order for you to feel good as a human being now doesn't get their needs met. Now this part of you becomes a part of you that you hate, that you reject, that you deny, that you try to get rid of, that you're going to spend the rest of your life unhealthfully expressing, that's going to come out as shadow, that you're going to work to try to get rid of and squash and deny in yourself. It's going to turn into addiction. It's going to turn into all of these repressive, depressive, anxiety-ridden. It turns into this whole mess because this is now a part of you that you hate, that you are afraid of. This is where the unworthiness part comes in. This is where you start to say, well, okay, this means these parts of myself that get it so that my needs are not met. My needs aren't being met, not because my caregivers don't understand my need, not because there just something isn't available right now, not because we literally just don't have the resources to do it, not because any of the actual reasons for why your need wasn't being met. Your child brain is just going to go, the reason my need isn't being met is because I'm bad. I'm not worthy of having my need met. I did something wrong that made my caregivers pull away from me. I am somehow fundamentally flawed because this is a natural part of me that I was just expressing and had no idea that it was wrong and bad until it got me rejected by the caregivers I depend on for everything. So to your brain and your body, this is now an existential crisis. There is a monster inside of me, is basically what we all think now. Because I was going along just fine getting my needs met, and then this thing happened that was natural to me, and it made my caregivers pull away, and my caregivers are what I am reliant upon for absolutely everything. So my only solution is to reject and feel like there's something fundamentally flawed about me. Because we don't have the reality, we don't have the resources to get our needs met without our caregivers. So we had to believe and assume that whatever their view of life was, whatever their version of good was, whatever their version of right was, whatever it was that got them to approve of us, we adopted that as reality. Because that's how we got our needs met. So long as we fit into that, we were getting our needs met. So long as we didn't fit into that, we weren't getting our needs met. When we don't get our needs met, we panic, we're in pain. When the only thing we have control over is ourselves, when we're in pain because we're not getting our needs met, we don't understand our needs, we don't know how to meet our own needs, we couldn't meet our own needs even if we wanted to, we have been completely indoctrinated that the way we get our needs met is through these people approving of me. So whatever their rules are the rules. That is reality to us as children. If we don't align with that, we are going to assume it's because there's something wrong with us. We're not going to question them. We're not going to say, oh, mom is wrong about this. My sexual need is perfectly healthy and great. Mom has to deal with her trauma about sexual stuff. No, you don't do that. What you did was, oh my God, this part of me is going to get me killed. Deny it. Get rid of it. This is a monster. I am no longer worthy of mom and dad's love because I just did something wrong that got them to abandon me or reject me or scold me or shame me. That is where the root of inadequacy comes from. Having our needs be fully and completely dependent upon caregivers who have rules for life that then reject, deny, shame, guilt, and abandon us, when the only thing we had control over was ourselves. So we had to label these parts of ourselves as wrong and bad and inadequate and shameful. And then we spend the rest of our lives, like I said, fighting against these parts of self that are absolutely fundamentally required for our genetic expression. So you wonder why we're in so much pain. This, okay? For instance, depression is a complex thing, but something that I have seen is very common in depression, a very common denominator of depression. Because yes, there can be biochemical things, there can be emotional things, there are many different reasons why we get depressed. But one of the biggest ones is that we don't see that the conditioning of our childhoods is only one way to live. The person we are trying to be, the person we are trying to become, the person we are trying to unbecome so that we can be good, this conditioning we don't even see, to us, we feel like is the only way. The only way. Because remember, in our childhood we learned acceptance, being this way is how I get my needs met. Because again, what did we want? We wanted our needs met. We wanted pleasure. We wanted the pain to get taken away. And we learned that the way for that to happen in our childhoods came through acceptance, right? Because we couldn't meet our own needs. There was the middleman of our caregivers. They had to approve of us in order to meet our needs. So we didn't learn, I'm hungry, I go get food. We learned, I'm in pain, I make noise, mom puts the boob in my face, I feel better. So the thing that I have to do is get mom. When I'm in pain, I have to express so that mom will fix it. When I'm in pain, I express so that dad will fix it. That's what we learned reality was. If there's a part of me that gets me rejected by these people, that part is bad. I am not worthy of love. I am shameful, because that is the thing we had control over. I will change my own behavior. I will change my way of being so that I will keep getting love and approval, which will keep getting my needs met. But then, right, it starts to become this snake eating its own tail thing, where the more we deny ourselves, the less we get our needs met. The more we try and fit in, the more we have to do what we have to do to fit in and be accepted and be approved of, the more that goes against our actual physical biology and what we really need, the more depressed we become. You see? Because now we might have complete success in being accepted, but that success is really painful, because in order to have that success of being accepted, of being approved of, we've had to deny and get rid of and repress so many parts of ourselves that we're going to be in a lot of pain. So we're going to get that consensus reality pleasure, but the true pain is always going to be there. And we're going to try over and over and over and over and over to be who our caregivers wanted us to be, to live up to this expectation that we learned from 0 to 7 that we don't even know that we are living up to. And we're going to feel like we've tried everything. We're going to feel like we've done everything we can possibly do. You're going to try every single way to be that person. And you're going to constantly feel like you're going to die. You're going to constantly feel depressed. It doesn't matter how much you achieve. It doesn't matter how much you accomplish. It doesn't matter. You're going to sabotage yourself. You're going to sabotage yourself. You're going to sabotage yourself. Or you're going to succeed, and you're going to get there, and you're going to feel like death. You're going to feel like hollow, like nothing. And you're going to feel like you've tried everything. You've done every way of life, and all of it feels like shit. so there is nothing for you. When the reality is, you have tried one thing. You have tried to become what your caregivers taught you had to be in your childhood. 100 million different ways. And in so doing, you've had to deny your real self. You've had to deny your true needs. You've gone all this time without your true needs being met. And that is why you feel so terrible. You're going to feel like you've done everything you could possibly do, when really it's just you've tried everything you could to try to fit into a thing you're never going to fit into. That is not who you are. That's a big part of what depression is. We think that our conditioning is it. That is the only way to have happiness. That is the only way to have success. We will have built these stories now, right? Like most of us don't think, I'm just trying to live up to the expectation of my caregivers. That's the other thing that's so tricky. Most of us are living our lives where that is actually the root of why we're doing what we're doing. We're still just doing whatever we thought we had to do in our childhoods to become who our caregivers wanted us to be, and then expand it out a little bit, right? Then getting the approval of our peers, getting the approval of our teachers, getting the approvals of our boss, all of this thing started to ripple out, because again, these started to become people that also met our needs. So same fundamental false premise. Getting my needs met comes through approval, and then someone approves of me, and then they understand me, and then they meet my need. The child way of doing things. And now caregivers, also teachers, also my friends, my bosses, we keep going from this paradigm. So we keep not being our real selves. We keep never figuring out what our real needs are. We don't even know why we want to be approved of. We don't even know what we need. We don't know what we want. We just are constantly on this hamster wheel of trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing. Feeling inadequate, feeling like shit, feeling like we don't know what we're doing. Rebelling from society, trying to do society. We have no idea that we're literally just operating under, if I'm accepted enough, I'll get my needs met. And I'm just trying to meet all these expectations that have been imprinted into my body and my mind as the only way for my entire life. Okay, and then on top of that, we have a society that has decided we fundamentally value the systems of production and consumption rather than seeing that life is the thing that has value, and the systems of production and consumption should be supporting life. Meaning, if life is in pain, if people aren't being supported, if people are saying, I'm not getting my needs met, if people are saying, this system isn't working for me, we should be saying, okay, we need to adjust the system. But what we do is we say, you need to adjust yourself to fit into the system. Because the system is right. And if you don't fit into it, you are not valuable. What? That makes absolutely no fucking sense. But it's our childhood trauma that we have turned into systems. In our childhoods, when we were in pain, our caregivers should have gone, why are you in pain? What are you not getting? What do you need? It's not that there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. When you're in pain, it's not that you're broken. This is a sign that you aren't getting your needs met. There's some antagonism happening. Your parents should have been able to know that for themselves. When I'm not getting my needs, when I'm in pain, when I'm not happy, when I'm not fulfilled, this means I'm in a situation where my genetic potential is not being able to be expressed. I'm being antagonized. I'm not getting what I need. If we understood that, then when we were in pain, we wouldn't reject the pain, deny the pain, run from the pain, tell the person who's in pain, you are what is broken. We would say, what's the need that we don't understand here? What's going on? Why are you in pain? What do you need? What's being antagonized? What's not being allowed to grow? What's wanting to grow and not being supported? That's the answer. But right, I said, instead of that, we reject the parts that are in pain as though they are what is wrong. What? No. The symptom is not the problem. The symptom is alerting us to the problem. The problem is we're not getting our needs met. Pain means we're not getting our needs met. So we lash out, we do whatever we did, we get in trouble for being who we are on our growth path. We're not learning. We hit another kid, and instead of being told, okay, feel what that feels like, now let's feel what cooperation feels like, now you've learned something, that's great, that's the point of that. We go, you're bad for hitting. Totally messed up. Because then we don't learn. Then we go into fight or flight, and then we fight with this aggressive part of ourselves that never actually got to learn, like grow and evolve past being aggressive. Now we just have this whole world of people who are aggressive because they never got to learn cooperation, because they were shamed in their aggression, or they were celebrated in their aggression. We didn't learn. And then again, like I said, now we also have systems of exploitation where so many people have way more than they need and still feel like they don't have enough. The successful people in our systems, right? There's this whole thing of like, if you're not making enough money, if you don't have your needs met, you need to increase your market value. You need to become more valuable to the system. You need to change and fix whatever's broken about you so that you don't have success in the system. What? If we really think about that, the systems, again, what is the point of a system? If not to support the thing that has actual value, which is life. The system has no inherent value. Money has no inherent value. Productivity has no inherent value. Consumption has no inherent value. Being accepted has no inherent value. These are means to ends at best. A truly healthy form of production is a form of production that helps us get our needs met. A truly healthy form of consumption is a form of consumption that actually helps us get our needs met. A truly healthy form of being accepted is the kind of acceptance that actually leads to needs being met. So what? So we can grow. That should be what we're all focusing on. So this idea that you're not productive enough for the system, that doesn't make any sense. Because the system is not the thing that is valuable. The system only has value so much as it's supporting the thing that has value, which is life. So if our systems are not supporting, generally speaking, life for how life actually is. So this whole, we're all supposed to become this very narrow, this is what it is to be a successful human being. If the system only supports those people, so like in our systems right now, CEOs, like who's making the most money? CEOs. Celebrities. Athletes. So if you're not one of those things, you're somehow inherently less worthy of being provided for than everyone else because you don't have market value. Okay, well, if we all became CEOs, celebrities, and entertainers, how well would society function? Not well. If we no longer had garbage men, if we no longer had service people, cashiers, if we no longer had low-wage earners, society wouldn't function. So like, even this idea of like, you just need to increase your market value. Well, the market doesn't value what's valuable. The market doesn't give fair value in exchange for what people are doing. Even without understanding that it's completely based on a false premise, that the thing that makes us valuable is how much we can be a battery for this system of production and consumption. Because that's really what this is right now. CEOs are batteries for production and consumption. They make the most money because they support the system. They are batteries for the system. We have spiritual teachers who are batteries for the system. Their one book full of their actual spiritual knowledge is never enough. They have to do another book and a teaching tour, and they got to charge millions of dollars. It's completely out of balance because they don't know what their enough is. They don't know why they're even doing what they're doing. They're continuing to consume and consume and produce and produce and produce, and they burn themselves out, and they're crazy and they're abusive and they do all this stuff because they're not seeing, what is the point? Why am I doing this? Like, yes, it's fundamental to me that I want to be a spiritual teacher, and it's fundamental to me that I need to get money so that I can get my needs met. But beyond that, to keep pushing past that, excess is just as bad for us, just as damaging as too little. And we're not seeing that. Excess is just as damaging to us as too little is. If we have not figured that out by now, look at the people who are at the top of our system. Are they happy? Are they thriving? Are they doing well? No. Do they have a shit ton of money? Yeah. Do they have a shit ton of power? Yeah. Are they able to abuse and manipulate and exploit huge groups of people? Absolutely. It might look like they're winning, but they're literally destroying the planet that they live in. They're destroying their own environment. They all have chaotic relationships. They're all neurotic. They're addicted to drugs. They're getting into like horrible, abusive, sexual scandal. Like, these are not signs of people who are thriving. People who are doing well don't do those things. People who are happy, who are actually successful, are kind and gentle and know what their enough is and don't take more than that and don't exploit other people because they understand that we're connected. There is no exploitation of another for the actual gain of self. Again, you might get a lot of money and power, but you sell your soul. You're not happy. You're a hungry ghost who always needs the next party and the next thing and the next accomplishment, and they're not okay. And then it creates the imbalance of the other half of the people who don't have enough. And they constantly feel horrible and terrible, and literally no matter what they do, they can't get enough. We have literal people in this society that it doesn't matter what they do. They are never going to make a living wage. And it's not because they're not valuable. It's not because they're not working hard enough. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's because of the zip code they were born in, where they don't get to go to school. The low-wage job is all they'll ever have. And the CEO who just increased the price of a drug to quadruple his income, means that that dude who's making less than minimum wage can't afford his medication anymore. Don't tell me that that dude just isn't working hard enough. He wasn't even given the opportunity to work hard enough. He's working much harder than the CEO and will never have what he needs. It's not because he's not worthy. It's because our system doesn't value life. So this is what we need to shift in ourselves. Those of us who are relatively stable, we're in the middle. We can make ends meet. We need to start recognizing what our enough is. And that's why I'm saying, for some of us, we don't have enough. And for some of us, the reason we don't have enough is because the systems don't support us having enough. It has literally nothing to do with our work ethic or our aptitude or how hard we're doing it. No. The system is set up so that it doesn't value human life. It's not your fault. That is a reality. There are systemic systems that make it so that groups of people do not have what they need. And it wouldn't matter how much they tried. And then we have people who have way more than they need. And they feel neurotic and like they're never enough, they're never producing enough, they're never doing enough, they're constantly on the next book tour, they're constantly whatever, and their lives are messes. Because they don't know what their enough is. So what the reality is that enough isn't an esoteric thing. And finding your value and finding your worth is a ridiculous question. If we keep asking that question, we're all off on it. You are valuable because you exist. And that needs to be where humanity starts. Like where we build all of our systems from. If we ever want peace on this planet, if we ever want to stop having this crazy cycle where we're all feeling inadequate and we're all over-consuming or under-consuming and having no idea, an abundance mentality, or should I be a minimalist, or am I, right, spiritual savior, am I a nobody, am I in a victim mentality, blah, 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 blah. But it all comes from, we don't yet have systems that are based on the fundamental reality of human life is what is valuable. So how do we make systems that accept the realities of human life, which are, we are never going to be equal. We are never going to have a system of production and consumption where everyone has the actual, true, equal capacity to earn enough to live, because we do not have equal capacity. We never will. There are always going to be people who are sick. There are always going to be people who are just intellectually not ever going to invent something new. They're not going to be the person who can build their own company and get to the CEO position and make billions of dollars. There are always going to be people who need support from others. There are always going to be people who are going to be stronger than others and better able to do things and have just biological, financial, societal, familial advantages over everyone else. That is always going to be reality. So if we want harmony, we're going to have to step back and say, okay, we are a humanity that is not equal. We are never going to be equal. But we value life because life is life. We have to stop looking at, do you feed the system? And that is where your value comes from. What's inside of us that has this belief that we should be the same or that everything should be perfect? Well, that's exactly what sorry, you missed the beginning of this call. So go back and watch the beginning of it. That comes from that root of when our caregivers rejected us. The only thing we knew to do was reject ourselves because we didn't understand. Either mom and dad just don't understand what our need is, or they don't know how to meet it, or they're missing whatever, which was what was really actually happening. We turned it into, I'm just not worthy of love. I'm just not worthy of having my need met. because there's this part of me that's getting me rejected. And all I know is getting my needs met comes from being accepted. So that is another thing that we all need to question. Am I living for acceptance as a means to an end? Or am I living for acceptance as though acceptance has some inherent thing for me? Does being accepted by the people around you actually mean you get your needs met? Or does it mean it feels good to your nervous system because that's what your nervous system learned, but you had to kill so many parts of yourself to get that acceptance that now you're depressed and anxious all the time? You're not getting your needs met by being accepted. That was a faulty program that is no longer reality. So again, right? We all want to be spiritual masters. We all want to be light workers. We all want to have Kundalini rising experiences and be coaches and blah, 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 blah. Again, right? Here's what I'm saying. It is simple, but not easy. This is right what I was about to say. We all want to have these spiritual experiences. Or how do we change this belief? We have to stop going on belief. It's not about belief. We have to start with the fundamental understanding that everything I do is an attempt at getting my needs met. That is why I do everything. We have to let go of what's wrong with me that I'm in pain, what's wrong with me that I'm addicted, what's wrong with me that I can't live up to that society, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, how do I fix myself, how do I improve myself, how do I tap it away? What parts of me got rejected? What's the story? What are the stories I'm telling myself about who I have to be and who I can't be? The real first step to spiritual, emotional, physical, mental mastery is starting to become aware of your actual needs. Because remember, that thing we learned, pain equals cry out equals someone else understands me and then my need gets met by somebody else. That's the program we're all running. So we feel like if we don't get accepted, we die. Because we never learned, no, I can be in pain, feel what my pain is, learn what my need is or what the antagonism is, meet my own need. That's adulthood. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean full independence. Sometimes my need is, I need someone to help me make money because I can't do it by myself. I need a friend to talk this out with because I don't know. I need an expert. I need a hand. The blue zones of this world where the people are living into their hundreds. The one common denominator is not their fucking diet. It's not how many hours of sunshine they get or their meditation practice. Dude, the blue zones are the blue zones. Because the people that live in those blue zones live in highly resourced, community-centric, life value societies. They live in communities where they work just enough to pragmatically meet the needs of the society, and then they spend the rest of their time doing the things they like doing as individuals. That's it. That's why they live so long. They have their needs met, and their community takes care of each other. So the dude that can't do as much as everyone else, he gets taken care of by everyone else. And then everyone lives for a long time. That's the thing they all have in common. Jeez. So this is what we have to start to do in ourselves. When I'm in pain, it means I'm not getting my need met. When I'm depressed, part of it might be that I'm continuing to try to be what I was taught I had to be accepted, because I learned in my nervous system that being accepted it means getting my needs met. But in order to be accepted, I'm having to destroy all these parts of myself and continue to try to be this one thing that I'm never going to be. And that is why I feel so dead inside all the time. So who am I really? What do I really need? What is my actual enough? What does it take to actually sustain me? So it's not about belief anymore. You're not getting your needs met because you're worthy or unworthy. You're an adult now. What are your needs? We have to first get real about that. And so many of us have so much shame and guilt and stories about who we are and what we need. And that's why my mystery school is the same fucking thing over and over and over and over again of addressing shame and guilt and your stories. Because they're so rooted in there. It's so rooted in here. It is not easy to even see your conditioning. Most of us are so assuming that what we're trying to do and what we're trying to be is right and that we are just broken. And that is such a fundamental assumption that we are not even seeing that we're doing it. So getting on that, that's why I say you don't need my mystery school. If you just did this one thing, stop asking what's wrong with me. Start asking, what do I need? What are my needs? What are my needs? What part of me is being rejected? Where did I learn that wasn't okay? Is that actually true? How can I get my needs met in a more harmonious way? Because this is the evolution of it. We start with becoming adults inside of ourselves where we learn what our own needs are. And then we learn how to get those needs met more and more and more. And then we start to ask the question, how do I start to meet these needs in ways that are most harmonious with my environment? How do I start to meet my needs in a way that actually help others meet their needs? That are in alignment with how nature works. So I don't need more money. I don't need more stuff. I have enough. So now what do I want to do? These kinds of things. And then we start to become the kind of people that start to build systems that actually support the thing that has value. Life. We will stop being so afraid that I don't have enough. Because it won't be a fantasy anymore. You will have actual self-awareness. Do I or do I not have enough? You will be able to answer that question. Like right now, if you don't feel good enough, what would good enough be? What would you have if you were good enough? If you were good enough, what would that mean that you had in your life? That's a clue about what you actually need. So it shouldn't be this esoteric thing. It should be literally, what are my physical, what are my mental, what are my emotional, what are my spiritual needs? What is enough to sustain me? It's not an esoteric concept. It's self-knowledge. And then, how do I have those things? And then that's how you start to feel secure, because you start to realize, I am the one that can do this for me. It's not about crying out and having someone else understand me and then provide it for me. It's about me understanding and then asking for it, or getting it, or working to change the systems so that it's possible for me to get that. Like people who are of a different race, who are crying out and saying, look, these systems don't fucking work for us. That's what has to happen. They need to say that. And we need to listen. Our system isn't working for everyone. Therefore, it is not a good system. Because there isn't a reality. In some life is worthy and some life isn't. That's not reality. Everyone's life is equally valuable. And if we don't start building systems based on that idea, everyone's life is equally valuable, so what does every life need and how do we get those needs met? That is when we will have peace on this planet. That is what we need to work towards. So we start with ourselves. What are my needs? Why do I want to be accepted? What would that get me? Why do I think I have to work that job? What would that get me? What is actually enough for me? And then understanding, right? The system is going to tell you, but you got to do more. You got to produce more. You got to consume more. Enough isn't enough. And we have to be strong enough to be like, yes, it is. Because the point is that I want to express myself. I don't want to just have more things. I don't want to just have more success. I don't want to just have more followers. Those things are means to ends. If those things are supporting you expressing your genetic potential, great, go for them. If they are a thing you're doing because you think you have to do it, no, you don't. Why? What's the actual need that's needing to be met? This is where we need to start. And then again, then we start to ask, how can I start to meet my needs in the most harmonious way for everyone around me? How do I start to meet my needs in a way that's most supportive for the life around me? This is when we will start to build the systems. Okay? So it's not that you're actually inadequate. You learn to reject parts of yourself that got you rejected from your caregivers and make yourself feel like you're not good enough. Because that was life-saving in your childhood. Being what they needed you to be was how you got your needs met. But now you're an adult. You can get rejected and still figure out how to get your needs met. Now it comes down to we need to grow up. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way. I mean that in society doesn't teach us this. None of us get taught. That's why this is what my mystery school is. And like I said, you don't even need to sign up. You literally just keep asking yourself, what do I need? What are my needs? Becoming self-aware. That is all we need to do. I've guided you through this whole process of like addressing your anger and all of these things because there's so much in it and we can get lost on the path and it can be very confusing. But ultimately, this is what it is. We become adults who are self-aware about what we need. We don't get rid of anything. We understand. We understand why it's there, what's the need that's not being met, what's the antagonism, how do I meet the need, how do I shift the antagonism. And then we move forward. And then we start to build systems that work for everybody. But we have to start with, again, you are fundamentally worthy. You were never rejected by your caregivers because you're not good enough. You were rejected by your caregivers because either they didn't have enough or they didn't understand. That's it. There is no bad part of you. There is no bad part of you. Your caregivers were wrong, or they just didn't have the resources. It was never about your worthiness. Society is not rejecting you because you're not worthy. It's because it does not understand. Life is valuable. All forms of life are valuable. That's it. All forms of life have needs that are different and unique. The system should be built around providing for the needs of the thing that has value, which is life. Life should not be the battery for the system. The system has no inherent value. We have to stop acting like the system is what has value. It does not. The system is only as valuable as it supports the thing that has value, which is life, which is you. You. You are the thing that has value. So what do you need? We must become self-aware. And we become self-aware by inquiring into our pain. And instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Because that's never, ever what it is. It's where am I not getting my needs met? How am I being antagonized? How do I start to meet my own needs? How do I start to ask to get my needs met? How do I start to create systems in my own life to meet my needs? And then how do I start to take that outwards? Instead of continuing to have to amass more and more and more for myself, how do I get to enough which again is not an esoteric concept. For some of us, it's more than we have right now. For some of us, it's less than we have right now. That's individual. You figure out what your actual needs are. You meet your actual needs, and then you go and you just express. You don't keep accumulating more. You do that thing that you do. You be that person that you are. That's your light work. Just expressing yourself. For some of us, that's going to mean writing spiritual books and doing talks and being activists and doing all these things. For some of us, we're going to be teachers. We're going to be artists. We're going to be cashiers. It's all equally valuable if it's what your genetic potential is. That's the thing that makes it valuable. And again, if we're all focusing on, I'm not here to just fit in. I'm not here to just accumulate. Enough isn't some random thing. If you don't have enough, right? Figure out what you need. How do we get more? If you have too much, you don't need more. The point is to express your genetic potential. The point is to express your genetic potential. Life is what has value. Okay. You are not inadequate. And you will start to reprogram that every single time you ask yourself, what is the need instead of what's wrong with you? What is my need instead of what's wrong with me? Where did I learn that I can't be this way? Where did this part of me that needs to mature and is stuck in childhood get shadowed? And how can I bring it into the light? What is this pain trying to tell me? I'm not wrong, I'm not bad, I'm not broken, there's no bad part of me. What's reality? What's the reality of who I am? What's the reality of what I need? How do I get those needs met in the most harmonious way possible? That's emotional mastery. That's spirituality. I don't care how many Kundalini rising experiences you've had. I don't care what you can see. I don't care how much you channel. I don't care how much you understand about people. If you don't know what your needs are, what's the point? Right? Become an adult. All of us. And it's not your fault. Let's do it together. Society did not teach us this. The system is not what has value. You are what has value. You are what has value. Okay? Okay. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and I will see you next time.